well, Judy, because I do like a little bit of interaction. So this is the first time I'm doing an actual Zoom class with quite a few people. So this is going to be fun and exciting and new for me. But I do kind of like to have a little bit of interaction. So if any time I ask a question or something really resonates with you, please type it into the chat, or find a way to get that that answer, that information to me.
I'm going to interrupt you already, because Christy says, what if she doesn't mind being recorded? So then you can just speak up, I would think.
That's fine with me.
Okay. So,
absolutely.
If you don't mind being recorded, then you can just speak up.
Absolutely. We're just going with the flow. So yeah, I'm really excited to bring this topic. Judy said that this has kind of been a popular topic, and I want to really kind of delve into the nuts and bolts, but also keep it kind of basic. And so I know that you guys are not on video, and Linda, I don't want to make it difficult for you. I should have said before with a show of hands, like who was, aware of and has had any experience or understood shamanism at all. And you don't have to undo your video and do a show of hands. We don't need to complicate that. But I was just kind of curious if, there were people that kind of understood shamanism, because what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of take it. Oh, I am seeing a little bit of hands there without the picture. I would like to kind of take it to a place where I'm giving you sort of the history, the background behind it, as well as some real practical ways that shamanism is used. And right out of the gate, what I'm going to share with you is, to me, first and foremost, when I think of shamanism and how I got into it. So I've been a psychic medium healer for close to 20 plus years now, but shamanism is at the core of what I do. So if you are drawn to healing work in any shape, way, or form, you're more than likely somewhere traversing in the realm of shamanism. And so I want to go into what shamanism actually is, because the cool thing about it is it is worldwide, and it has been around for a very long time. So I will be reading from some notes and stuff from time to time here. So shamanism is a deeply rooted traditional system for healing and solving personal and community problems. And so you can see why it's so important right now, and how many people are using it as a type of healing system. It reaches back to the Stone Age, and it's still alive and well today, and has actually been embraced by medical practitioners, psychologists, therapists, and workshop leaders that are seeking new paths to personal development and self-help. So that in itself, really kind of was exciting, because what I was realizing is that's sort of where we're going in the future. Is we're becoming more holistic, right? We're becoming more worldly. We're looking at things not necessarily from such a black and white perspective, but we're starting to take a lot of things into consideration: mind, body, spirit, soul. It's all connected. And so I'm going to go back a little bit further. This is where kind of it's really fun. So I didn't get a chance to find out where you guys are from around the world. Judy said that there are people, I think Lolly was someone who popped in, and she was from UK. And so I think it's kind of fun, because somewhere you might be able to relate to the history of shamanism in regards to the cultures, like the different cultures around the world that use it. And so with that, you can kind of maybe think of your ancestry as well. So anthropologists have found examples of burials from about 130,000 to 30,000 BCE, in which the bodies were buried with grave goods, including stone tools, animal bones, such as a cave bear, and even flower arrangements. So this suggests that was a religious belief system, and that is where shamanism and how it developed in the many cultures across the world. So I'm going to kind of give you just a little briefing. So Eskimos in Greenland, who were encountered 100 years ago by Westerners, had shamans. So Eskimos in Greenland. Laplanders in Scandinavia, whose culture was not contaminated by the expansion of Christianity due to the expansion of Rome. They also had shamans there. This is one of my favorites. So Shinto and Korean shamanism. So there's not only Buddhism, but it goes back to Shintoism, which is actually, and we'll get into it a little bit more too, where we start to look into the elements, earth, air, fire, and water. So Shintoism and Korean shamanism remain alongside modern culture in Japan and Korea. And that's another way of looking at shamanism, using the elements earth, air, fire, and water. There have even been encounters with isolated bands of Native Europeans in isolated parts of the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe up until World War I. And here's another one. People most closely related genetically to Native Americans in Asia are the people around the region of Tuva. So one thing I want to kind of share with you is a lot of us are familiar, and Linda, I might actually kind of, I don't want to say use you, that's a terrible way to say it, but I might bring you into the conversation a little bit because
go ahead.
You had, this is something that you are starting to kind of look into. And so one of the things that I want to also say about this is I think a lot of us, and even for myself, and I'll weave a little bit of my story in there as well and how I got into it. A lot of us think that it's solely Native American, right? We think of Native American shamanism because of the medicine man and the medicine woman. And yet, again, it's all over the world. Celtic shamanism, the Germans had Viking, like the Vikings. And so I guess my question to you, Linda, would be, whatever it is that you're studying and you're doing as well, are you resonating from a Native American perspective, or is it more from a global perspective with the shamanism?
Global, definitely global. Yep.
Yes, exactly. And that's what makes it really exciting because, I mean, let's face it, like we are being urged and encouraged and empowered to see ourselves as one, right?
Yes.
One planet, one heart, one consciousness, one. And so when we are one and we're looking at all of the similarities and what we can relate to and how we can relate to it all over the world, it brings more into the forefront of that oneness that we're seeking, so that there's less division and less competition. So I'm going to share a couple more little pieces of this. So a good example of the way shamanism changed is the elaborate belief system that the Mayan developed, in which the Mayan shamans and later priests. So it's interesting that we also look at, I was saying in shamanism, we have the medicine man, medicine woman, and then we also have kind of the priest and the priestesses. And I'm very, how do I want to say it? That's definitely an area, the priest and the priestesses, that I have been very fascinated with, because we even go into like the Egyptian lore and legends and myths, right? Where a lot of our mystery schools came from. But the bottom line is when you're working with an elaborate belief system where you're incorporating all of these different rituals and ceremonies, we're connecting to spirit, we're connecting to the earth, we're connecting to each other. And that's what we're craving, is that connection, right? That connection of who we are, why we're here. We're not just meat suits. We are so much bigger than that. And I think the other thing that I want to share that I love, and I'm so happy to see Colin, I think is his name here. Hi, Colin. So great to have. I knew there was going to be a guy on here, but I had no idea who or what he was going to look like. So I'm so happy that you're here. But the reason why I wanted to say that, why I'm kind of pointing Colin out here, is one thing I have learned, and what is so cool about shamanism is whether I am working one-on-one with somebody or whether I'm doing it in a classroom setting, men are very drawn and understand shamanism. And I think, and even like, I'm going to say our husbands, our boyfriends, our significant others, when you sit them down and you start talking about, the animals that, you went on a walk and all of a sudden the dragonflies were like flying, or you saw a deer or any of that sort of stuff, it's like, that's not so far out there for them to make a connection between the animals and what is significantly showing you, here's a sign, like, what is this sign about? And so that has been, and I was telling Judy and Linda a couple days ago, that's been one of the most awesome things about my work, is, and we have the Heartlight Center here in upstate New York, and we have men. There's time, there was a man just calling me just now to let me know that he's coming to a program tomorrow. So, but my point is that men are very drawn to the shamanic ways. And so I love it because it's a way that we can connect and bring them in, because I don't know, I know a lot of women that kind of roll their eyes and they're just like, I can't get my man to understand a single thing that I am doing. But boy, when you start talking about the Native American legends and the lores and the medicine wheel and the shaman who's the medicine man, I mean, you can sit there with your mouth just like, wow, they're just really into it. And, you know, it's a past life thing as well, definitely, because we're finding our tribe. So that's sort of a pun intended. So anyways, I'm going to go back to the Mayan shamans. So the Mayan developed, you know, and they developed the culture, you know, you understand a little bit about the Mayan calendar. You know, there's so many different ways that we can go with this, but I definitely want to stay in the basic realm and keep you kind of, keep you engaged and interested. But we are very familiar with the Mayan calendar, how at the end of 2012, you know, we thought that something horrible was going to happen. Well, all that really meant is we were going into another cycle. And so that's the other thing about what's so awesome about shamanism as well, is there's cycles, right? Like it's very much connected to earth wisdom. I call it earth wisdom because Buddhism is earth wisdom, Native American earth wisdom, Wiccan earth wisdom. So, you know, there's so many Celtic earth wisdom. And I think when we start to take it out of the box and make it more basic, anybody can have a conversation about shamanism. So what exactly is a shaman, right? Like what is shamanism, and what is it, you know, what is it, how do we relate to it in terms of now? So there's so many, you know, I'm someone who believes in the dictionary. Like I love to start a lot of my classes and say, okay, so Wikipedia or, you know, Webster's dictionary says this, this, and this. But I also believe very strongly that we're coming into a time where we become our own walking dictionary, because I can tell you that a shaman is this, this, and this. But unless it resonates and rings true for you, it's going to be hard for you to relate to it. And so we become our own walking dictionary, because that walking dictionary is what sort of separates the truth from somebody else's truth for us. And so, so the thing is with shamanism is the shaman genuinely, I use the word traverse, the shaman genuinely goes into another place. And so we were talking about the lower realm, the upper realm, and the middle realm. And why the shaman goes there is, and I'm kind of getting this really cool image of the doctor, right? So you have somebody on the operating table and the doctor knows what to do, right? The doctor's gone to school. The doctor knows what to do from a scientific medical perspective in place. Now, some doctors definitely have that intuitive ability to know what needs to be done, but for the most part, they do it from a place of books, facts, patterns, things like that. So what a shaman does is a shaman can actually see into the body. The shaman can travel into the body. Maybe might even be a little familiar with what's considered shamanic extraction. So like when I'm working with someone one-on-one, we're doing shamanic extraction, soul retrieval. And the reason why those are so very important is because there's things in our body that we need to release, we need to get rid of. They could be trapped emotions, they could be belief codes, they could be things that have just been with us for a very long time. They could be cords, things like that. But there also are parts of us that we have lost along the way. And this is what truly got me into shamanism. Because let's face it, since the beginning of time, there has been trauma and there's been shadows and there's been pain and suffering. And so the medicine man and the medicine woman has this way of being able to go in and recover and resurrect those parts of you that in some ways I would even say are kind of dead. They're stagnant, right? There's energy in you that is no longer feeding you and giving you the life that you need. And so with that being said, the shaman, and I have a couple tools here. I'm just kind of keeping track of the time, and I'm gonna introduce you to the tools. The shaman goes into a person's body, and they do that through way of journeying. And you don't have to be a shaman to journey, but what you're doing is we're working with the soul. The soul is all about the healing, right? It's about bringing the soul parts back to 0 point, back to where you were at the beginning of time. And so there's the drum is used, there's the steady melodic beat. So the drum is used to get you, the person who is relaxing, because the more you are relaxed, pure potential. Yes, exactly. It's pure potential, bringing you back to that place of pure potential, that 0 point. Love it. Thank you, Adrienne. I really love that. Because then what happens is you now are going into a place where you can get to the source of the issue. So it's kind of like past life regression. It's kind of like quantum healing, quantum, it's a whole different ball of wax when it comes to healing, but yet it's rooted in an ancient system. And I think that's why I love it as well, because it's rooted in an ancient system, and yet it takes you out of your body to some degree. You even can go into, I don't know, you can go into these different realms to bring back the information. And so, for instance, when the information is brought back, you're shown like a movie of what you are to do with this person. And so, so for me, like I would use different stones, I would use different cutting tools, I would use different things to bring that person's soul element, soul essence, soul aspect back to their body. And so that's what the shaman does. Now, it's funny because I'm kind of hearing, like, this is the question I'm hearing for myself to say to you. Well, what gives me the right, or what makes me a shaman, right? Like, I'm thinking, like, what is it that, why would I choose that? Or what would make me do that? Because I want you to see if this is for you as well. Well, first of all, there is a great need for healing in the world. And the reason why we are here is to become one, to become whole, to go back to source. And so there's many, many ways that we do that. But when we are starting to focus and connect and relate to earth, right? So let me be very specific. The trees. When, right before I started this program, like, I had to imagine and meditate and could feel the roots pulling me down into the earth so I could be present and be here. Because when you're in your body and present, that is where you actually can activate and touch source and get the information that you need. So you don't have to ask a million people, gosh, what do I do about this? What do I do about that? The information comes within. And so this is a very important thing for me, because prior, I grew up on the river in a little town. I had 12 of my graduating class. And I was initiated, if you will, into the spirit world at a very young age. When I would look across the river from where I grew up, I would see the Native American villages. When I would go across the street from where I grew up, I was in the cemetery communicating with the spirits over there. When I was feeling like I wanted a little adventure, I would run out into the hills, and I would be, and this is my family, my soul family, I would communicate with the fairies, with the nature spirits. So for me, finding shamanism brought me back home to myself. It kept me grounded so that, yeah, it's okay, Renee, if you go out into the ethers and into the cosmos to get the information that you need, because you're grounded in your sense of self. So it's very important when we think of shamanism, earth. Air, of course, we think of inspiration and insight. And that was one of the things that I wanted to share. Is I'm going to just go over it really quickly, and then I want to tell you about the directions, and then bring in kind of like a prayer so we can actually start maybe doing some practical things. So air, when we think of air, the air we breathe, right? The air that is around us. I mean, air is new, it's vital, it's something that, I mean, let's face it, we're being told left and right that we can't really breathe the air because of this whole mask thing. So the more we can get that air and that breath, the more present, again, we can be in our bodies as well. Fire is healing, it's transformational. I mean, we do ritual with fire, we burn sage. I mean, these are all elements that we use, and the shaman knows how to alchemically create balance and heal where it's needed in the body. And then of course, water. And the thing about water is we're really, we're in the age of Aquarius now, right? We're finally in the age of Aquarius, and that's the water bearer. And so water is all about emotions and feelings, and it's going with the flow. And it's really fabulous because now in spring is about the air, because if you're to look at the wheel, part of, so earth is winter, air is spring, fall is water, and then summer is fire. For those that just, this is being, okay. Thank you. So, so when we look at it, earth, air, fire, and water, we can connect to that within us as well. We know what earth means for us. We know what air means for us. We know what fire means for us, and we know what water means for us. And so the shaman would work with these elements. And again, I mean, we're talking magicians, we're talking wizards, we're talking priests, we're talking priestesses. That's what the shaman really is the healer, the person who can create that change, that transformation. So
let me ask a question, Renee.
Yes, I was just gonna say, let's take a moment and ask a question or two.
Okay, so can you explain more? You mentioned on healing, and then you go into a person's body to soul retrieval or things of that nature. Can you explain what the problem is that they're having that you would do such?
Fantastic question. Thank you, Linda. Very much so. Yes. So, so the first thing that comes to mind is, as children, there's different things that happen to us where we might lose a portion or part of our being. And so, soul retrieval, what happens with that is we lose, gosh, I don't know. First thing that comes to mind, like I'm seeing an accident. All right. So let's say we're in an accident and there's trauma there. And so what happens is our being actually leaves our body, because anytime there's a trauma, we've got that fight or flight. And so we just leave, we just take off. And so that is a safety mechanism, that's self-preservation, and it totally makes sense because we don't want to feel those things, right? We don't want to feel the pain and suffering. So what happens is when I go into someone's body, I mean, I can access the, now we call it the Akashic records, but I can access the Akashic records very easily for someone. And I didn't know I've been doing this for a very long time. So what happens is and I always ask for permission. I can never go into someone's body or being or energy field without their permission. I would never want to do that. So what happens is I will see the movie, I will see the story. And I will also, Linda, it's very important that I know from my healing, I call it my healing helper team, that I ask the question and that I am very compassionate and very discerning of how to have that interaction with someone. Because when you're talking about trauma and pain and suffering, this is where you really need to be very delicate. So what happens is I'll be like, okay, so I'm seeing that this person left their body at a time when they were younger. Perhaps there was some kind of, I don't want to go into the specifics. We all can sort of relate to something in some shape, way, or form. But let's say an accident. And so they left their body and they're missing a part of that. Now, I'm not saying physically they're missing it, but energetically they're missing that essence, because when this trauma happened, it left their body. And so for me, I can go in, or any shaman can go in with that permission. There's a drum and I connect with the person's soul. Now, sometimes that doesn't happen right away. There's been times where I'll go into their body and and I'll know it's kind of like their inner child, because it's almost like it's very hard to get them to, I'm like, wow, their energy field's all over the place. How can I get them to kind of relax? And so that's where the drumming, and it's also done with spirit animals. So my spirit animal, it's not me doing it. My spirit animal goes into this person's body, and I connect with their soul. And then once that is that part of them is retrieved, it's a gift. What happens is you are blowing back, you are bringing back. There are ways just touching them. I speak the light language. I don't need to go into that in great detail here, but the light language is the language of the stars. And so what happens is, because our souls come from the stars, when I speak the light language, that soul aspect comes back into them. And that's how Shine, Soul Healing Integrative Natural Energy, was born. And so I don't know if let me see. Yeah, I'm seeing blue. I don't know if I communicated that correctly to you. Do you want me to elaborate on that a little bit more, or how do you feel?
I think that's pretty good. I know there's other reasons you go in your journey with a person, you heal them different ways. I mean, it might be a soul retrieval, it might be for something else like a sickness or something, or
Yes.
healing, which is, it's all affecting the soul, correct? That you do something.
Exactly. What's happening is it's integrating. So you're integrating these pieces and parts. So think of it this way. I mean, we all have soul fragments out wherever it is. So for instance, if you go into the Akashic records, or you go someplace, you go into these different dimensions, what happens is you're actually able to locate that. So I don't know, I'm just going to give you an example. So when I was younger and I lived on the river, there was this time where, I mean, it was a very traumatic, kind of a very tumultuous household that I grew up in. And so what would happen would like if my toys were out or something, the toys would be thrown in the river. And like, I remember like my doll, right? And so this isn't just about toys. Like, we identify ourselves with everything. Everything is mirroring for us. So here's a doll that was like probably the same, height as me, right? And this doll got thrown in the river. And a part of me was thrown in the river with this doll. And not only was it about the doll, but it was multidimensional. There was something more going on, because if I felt safe and loved and nurtured and embraced and all those lovely little things that many of us don't get 95% of our lifetime, otherwise we would not have chosen the healing path. If I would have felt that way, probably throwing that doll in the river I would not have lost a soul part of myself. So I would have, so that was something that a shaman teacher was able to do for me. And same thing with, when I had lost my father, that was actually around the time I lost my father, I was really delving into shamanism. And what amazed me is how much, as I knew he was starting to transition, how much that was the only way I was going to be able to connect with him. I couldn't meditate with him. I could tell you some phenomenal stories about that. And that is also why we get into shamanism. It's called psychopomp. And it is to help those transition to the other side in a way that is peaceful and loving, and they get it. It's a beautiful, beautiful process, because once again, we're talking about different realms, right? We're talking about going into different realms, going to the other side, going to your soul family, going to meet your ancestors. So, yeah. So that's another reason why we do that.
Adrian has a question. Which realm? Oh, no, she's got a couple of them. Let's start with the other one. Since we are in spring, can you give us some examples of rituals to work with that element?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to tell you right off the bat, fairies and gardening. So, and the thing is with the fairies is, we're not talking Tinkerbell. I mean, Judy knows I really wanted to do a program on fairies here, but she said, nope, do shamanism. So, and that's fine. It's all related, because the fairies are part of the shamanic realm. But so, yes, absolutely. Great question, Adrian. And so what you can do is you can go to, you know, when you're working in your garden, you can feel those roots. You can feel, you know, and I think that's probably what we'll do. We'll probably do an experience, because I was thinking it would be nice to do like a little journey with the spring. So that's a great such way to do that. And what you can do is you can just kind of, you know, I almost feel like one of the things you can do is just go right outside, open your arms up really, really wide, and just feel the air. Feel the air around you, lifting you up, bringing you like just new ideas and inspiration. You know, I just posted something on my Facebook page. I have a couple of those. I wanted to ask people, like, what is it, what, you know, what's the difference between ideas and inspiration? Well, inspiration's spirit, right? Ideas are airy fairy in some ways, but inspiration really takes hold and pulls you through. And so we just had an O-Star ritual gathering celebration here. And that was all about sort of putting Winter to bed, right? Not like, you know, not like cutting it off at the arm and just being like, oh, I'm done with winter. I mean, it's transitioning and transforming and changing. You're still taking the lessons and the part of you that was, you know, from winter into spring. But spring is about inspiration, ideas, and new growth. And so something you can do also is look to the east. So I will share that with you in a moment. Let me finish this up, and then I'll share with you in a moment the directions, and because I want to call in the directions, and I want to set the intention with a prayer, and then maybe we'll be able to do a journey. But the east, if you go to the east, what is it? It's the rising sun. So the keywords, the watchwords for you for now in spring is air, east, inspiration, movement, right? Air moves us. We're no longer in winter like, oh, you know, achy bones. I'm not saying you're not going to have that still, but you want to align yourself with these cycles. And that's what the shaman does, right? The shaman will look up at the sky and be able to read the weather patterns and look at the fuzzy little caterpillar and just be like, oh, okay. You know, the Farmer's Almanac was very shamanic in a lot of ways. And the farmers, I mean, they have, they're shamans as well. And so it's really about connecting with the earth from a healing perspective, whether you choose to be a practitioner or whether you just choose to use it in practical ways.
Mhm. Adrienne has another question. She asks, which realms do you work in? Which realm, excuse me, do you work in? Or do you allow your guides to take you to the realm that is for the client's highest and best good?
Great questions, Adrienne. She's cool. Make sure she reaches out to me afterwards. We could have, what do they call that? Tea and talk on Zoom? I don't know.
There you
I'm
go.
not sure.
You've got to put in chat. You've got to put your contact information, your website,
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that, definitely.
Yeah, your Facebook page. Yeah.
So, Adrienne, great question. So
She said she would love that.
yes, I will do
together with
that.
you.
I'll totally do that. So do we have 2 hours? So, the realm that that I work with the most, if you really want to know the truth, is the celestial realm. So what I mean by that is I actually have access and I'm able to go into different dimensions in terms of where our soul origins come from in the stars. I'm kind of reminded of Ancient Aliens, if any of you guys ever watched that. There's a lot of truth in that sort of stuff, because I have always believed that disclosure is a very interesting thing, because if we really knew who we were, I think it would be quite a party for sure. I mean, we can't seem to get along with different colors. Can you imagine what it would be like to get along with different races of different planets and dimensions? So I'm able to actually go to those dimensions and bring forth the energy and the language of each of those. So for instance, the Pleiades, Lyrans, really love the Lyrans. That's a very fun, almost Disneyland type of realm. So I work in that realm and that dimension, very fairy as well, which is the Celtic. I think that's pretty much it. Well, what I'm hearing, and I need to say this very strongly, is I work very much in the ascension realm as well. My work is done in 5D. I'm very much 5D related. So I can work with somebody on 3D, but the idea is to get them vibrating at a very high level. And the reason why is because when you get vibrating at a high level, you're transcending and transforming the 3D, the third dimensional pain and suffering that we feel. So, and it is kind of even like, you know, Jesus on the cross. I mean, it's a very interesting story. I mean, Jesus was a druid, healer, teacher, knew Buddha, you know, so when you think about it, like it's a whole different realm. And it's kind of idea of church, even upside talking for a moment. So yeah, celestial realms, very, very strongly. Yeah.
Oh, your network bandwidth is low.
Yeah, it said my internet connection is low. So what I think what I want to do is, but I stopped talking so that you didn't vibrate. Are we vibrating? So I'm going to transition and tell you a little bit about the drum. So the shaman uses the drum. It's like a canoe, right? And it's also the heartbeat of the earth. This is my drum. I made it. It's out of buffalo skin. I chose buffalo. I work with white buffalo calf women. And this is a community drum. So I created it and made it out of buffalo hide in the hopes and the intention of bringing community together. And that's what we do here at the Heartlight Center. And so the drum is not only the heartbeat of the earth. So let's do that for a moment. I'm going to call in the directions. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of an experience with some of these shamanic tools, because, you know, I know that I'm supposed to sit here and speak, and I want to do that, but I definitely, yes, exactly. Upper, middle, and lower. Yes, exactly. The word, yes, those worlds. So I'm going to speak. I'm going to be done speaking and give you an experience now. So the best way to really experience this, if you would, I mean, I can't tell if you're closing your eyes, but closing your eyes is really a wonderful thing to do when you're experiencing the drum. I'm going to call in the directions. I'm going to do an opening prayer to Great Spirit, and then I'm going to do a little bit of drumming. Okay. I don't think we're going to go to a middle, upper, or lower worlds. I don't think that's a good idea to do right now. I think it's just good enough to experience a little bit of the drum, and I'll let Spirit kind of guide me through. So in your mind's eye, if you know your directions, wonderful. If not, just do the best you can to imagine. And so I'm facing the north. And so that's where I start. So I call in the spirit keepers of the north, the place of grounding, our ancestors, earth, and the trees. We welcome them to be with us. To my right would be the east. So I don't want to confuse you, but this is how I call in the directions, because I'm calling in the directions here in this space so that it transposes and transfers to wherever you are, but just note where you are in terms of the directions for yourself. So east, the place of new beginnings, air, winged ones, the winged ones, inspiration. We call in the spirit keepers of the East. We welcome your lessons and your blessings. In back of me, it's the south. Healing, fire, transformation. And the west on my left is water. This is where our aquatic animals, the water animals, maybe dolphins, the flow, rivers. And then I like to acknowledge Father Sky above me, because without Father Sky, there would be no action. We need masculine and feminine to bring forth action. I bow my head to Mother Earth, she who nurtures, sustains, and roots us. And so we call in those directions, and then we say, "Oh, Great Spirit, I give thanks for all the wonderful blessings in my life. As I continue on this journey, I am reminded that everything is interconnected with the web of life. I now open my mind, my heart, and my eyes to receive that which is for my greater good and greater good of others. I am a part of you, and you are a part of me. Aho." And so I'm going to start doing a little bit of drumming. And I want you to imagine, we're talking about trees, right? I want you to imagine those roots coming out of the bottoms of your feet. See going down through the earth, rooting you, grounding you, keeping you here. Touch the middle of the earth. Bringing that energy back up through your feet so it touches your heart chakra, the middle of your chest, the heart. That is green. It is that time that we are in right now. Breathing that in. That beautiful, healing, green energy. Seeing what expansion looks like for you. I don't know what kind of meditation or breathing you guys do, but something that is so beneficial. I mean, I think sometimes we're so self-conscious when we're around people, or I don't know, maybe on Zoom. Oh, this is my first time and I'm having a blast with it. But when you breathe, breathing out and making a noise, almost like a fire-breathing dragon, is so amazingly releasing. You're releasing and you're purifying and you're cleansing the air around you. So breathing in and breathing out. And I don't want to startle you, but I'm going to rattle as well. So the drum kind of creates that harmony and that melody and kind of brings you into, I really don't want to, I don't want to take you too far. I mean, we're really just going to do the basics, but I want to explain the rattle and how important the rattle is as well. And so the rattle has the same kind of beat as the drum. And the beautiful thing about the rattle, I teach kids this. I mean, where do you think banging pots and pans came from? It's to actually create this like resonance. But before you have the resonance, you have to kind of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like basically tell the bad juju to go away, right? Like just go away. Don't be here. Don't be, I mean, there's sage, there's all these different things that we do, but it clears, cleanses, purifies the energy field. I cannot stress enough how much we need to clear, cleanse, and purify the energy field all the time. There are so many ways we can do it. And so breathing in that beautiful, clean, clear air, what do you imagine and see for yourself? How can you use this springtime to bring forth what it is that you want? And at the same time, what are you willing to let go of? Not get rid of, not kill. We fear, we kill what we fear. It's a very interesting, we need to understand it. What are you willing to just let go of? And so let Mother Earth, let the earth take that from you. You know, Adrian, you asked, what else can you do? You know, people kind of laugh at us when we hug the trees, but I'm going to tell you, you hug the trees hug you back. I've had people say to me, oh, but I don't want to give the earth all of my yucky energy or my tears or my anger. The earth knows how to regenerate itself. The earth knows, I mean, it's been doing it for hundreds and thousands of years, and that's what it's here for. Because when we do that, when we give to the earth, we also receive. And so that's really, I mean, that is the blessing and the beauty of working in the shamanic realm, working in the upper, the middle and the lower worlds. I'm just looking to see, I'm not really feeling like I want to, I don't know why, just going into those worlds is a lot more, there's a lot more to that. And I don't want to go there. And I don't know how it would go on Zoom, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if that would be a good choice to do or not. So let me see, it's 7:27. Let me, I want to make sure that everybody's kind of back, how they feel like they're back in their body. It was a very basic kind of thing. I'll do a little bit more drumming. I don't know if you can hear the drum. I have to tell you, I want to sing, but I won't.
I can't hear you, Renee.
Oh, you can't?
There, now I can. No, now I can't.
Okay.
I think your connection's low.
Okay.
Maybe you can explain a little bit that to go into the different worlds, the upper, lower, and middle, you have to come back fully. And
Exactly.
that's one of the things maybe we don't want to do on Zoom, because you have to come back. The sound of the drum or the rattle or anything that changes in tempo to let you know to start retracing your steps to come back. So
Exactly.
fully
Yes.
back.
Thank you. And I kept getting, I mean, it was funny because I really thought we were going to have a drumming, and I kept getting nope, not going to happen.
No.
So, you know, not on here, not like this. It's not going to happen. It's not. And you're right. The internet connection is getting unstable as well.
Right. Yes. Adrian
I
says,
have a couple other
unfortunately,
things that-
Zoom will cancel out noise. You have to have a special mic. That's what she says. I don't know.
Thank you. Okay, very good to know. Yeah, I have a few more things here, but but I'd be happy to transition into whatever you guys want to transition into. I had a couple other things I would talk about, but yeah, if you have
No,
questions or
I think you
see
can
Judy
go ahead
on
and,
too.
you've got a few more minutes if you want to go ahead and, a couple of other small things. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So here's something that I wanted to kind of share in terms of, so I wanted to have an experience about calling in the directions, calling in Great Spirit. And Linda brought up really good, a good point is because we are going into other realms, and let's face it, we're already kind of half in our bodies and half out these days because of the way that the world is right now. And it takes a lot of self-discipline to make sure that we are grounded and centered, and kind of walking that path. And so when you are doing the shamanic work, so for me it took a long time to finally like really I took real specific classes. I teach different classes as well, and it's a commitment. I mean, it's not, how do I want to say it? Like I teach a lot of like basic, like one and done type of classes, but this is like a series. And Linda's right. Like when you go to the upper world, the lower world, the middle world, you go to meet your guides, you go to meet, and your guides work with you, you go to get a vision. And that's why, another thing is if you're an artist in any shape, way or form, I have found, I just met with a really wonderful artist again today for like the second or third time in like 10 years. And it's clear to me she's a shaman. I took her out to the medicine wheel and she was just blown away at the vortex and the energy that came through, the medicine wheel, the stone circle. And artists, right, have this amazing way of being able to see the artwork before it has come to fruition. And so we are all shamans these days because we're considered visionaries, right? We see the vision. Most shamans, I will say, honestly, can see. So even in like the realm of the mediumship and things like that, like if you can see very well, there's a very strong chance that you can become a shaman, or were a shaman in a past life. So because of that, that's the idea, is you can go to get the vision. And then when you have that vision, you bring it back to bring it to fruition. And that's where the community comes in, because you go, the medicine man or medicine woman would have their fire, they would have the drum, they would acknowledge all of their allies, right? And then they would go to these realms to receive the vision to bring back for their community and their village. I cannot tell you how exciting that gets me I mean, that's how heart-centered living was created, was, there was a vision that was presented to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like I'm sitting around, the fire around a council, and everybody is like coming together and talking about how do we solve these world's problems. Well, they didn't give a shit about the world's problems. They were worried about their own community problem. But now that's the thing. Like when we look at, I mean, I can't say they didn't give a shit about the world problem. That's a terrible thing to say, but they were focused on their community. And so the thing is with shamanism is there's shamanism, there's healing yourself, which always has a huge effect on the community and the planet. There's healing the community as well. And then there's healing the planet. And so that's all interchangeable. And the more that we recognize and realize that, the more we are bringing love and light and wholeness and oneness to the world. And that's what the powers that be and the celestial realms and the gods and all of, that's what we're here to do. That's really what we're here to do. So I say in shamanism, we don't see the world as it is, we dream the world awake, and then we create it the way we see it. So having that collective dream, peace, love, unity, rainbows, I mean, it's not that far-fetched, and the cosmic heart, I feel that so strongly.